Iraq's Prime Minister has called off a meeting with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Jeddah. The move comes after US and Saudi attacks on pro-Iran-backed groups in Iraq. The Iraqi president has condemned the violation of Iraq's sovereignty, but the US President Donald Trump has told Fox News the attacks were coordinated with the government in Baghdad. The militants, meanwhile, are warning US and Saudi forces will pay a price. For more on this story, we can bring in our international affairs editor, Angela Diffley. Angela, great to see you. What do we know about these latest strikes?
Yeah, it's entirely possible that Baghdad was informed about this beforehand, as Donald Trump is saying. We don't know if that's true or not, but it's entirely possible. That said, the Baghdad Prime Minister, the Iraqi Prime Minister, Ali al-Saidi, would want to protest by not attending the meeting in Saudi Arabia, would want to make a point that this is Iraqi sovereignty that has been infringed. But that said, this is a man who basically was a businessman. He had no governing experience. Donald Trump is the person who got him that job by insisting that there was deadlock for a long time before al-Zaidi was put in. It was agreed upon by the Iraqis, and Donald Trump basically threatened to no longer give funding or aid to Iraq unless he was put in, because he was Donald Trump's man. So I think we can assume that is a protestation which needed to be made rather than something much, much more significant. He has been given, or he has said at a meeting with Trump recently, 2 weeks ago or so, Trump has asked him to try to stop Iranian militias operating from Iraq. He wants to do that himself. It's not just for Trump. He's given them until the 30th of September. It is very unlikely he will succeed. That is where we are. It is interesting, too, to note that Saudi Arabia now joining the US on these counterattacks. We've also had Bahrain. We also had Kuwait. More and more countries are being drawn into this, and that in itself always makes any ceasefire agreement more difficult to negotiate. And I think it's worth also referring back to the Strait of Hormuz. Saudi Arabia, of course, has lost a lot of its oil exports because of that. Interestingly, Politico had an exclusive today saying that Pete Hegseth had a conversation with the new UK Defence Minister, Wes Streeting, and is really trying to push the idea long talked about between Paris and London that they might do some sort of sea patrol to protect shipping after any ceasefire is agreed. But it is interesting that Washington is really trying to get this thing moving. I have no doubt Wes Streeting said to him, look, if you want that to move, stop berating Europeans at every opportunity. But there is a growing realization that the world is being held hostage by this, whatever happens.
And Iran is not going to let go of the Strait of Hormuz easily. It knows it has cards to play as well. Now, of course, this is part of what happened in Iraq is part of the broader conflict between the United States and Iran. And just yesterday, we had Benjamin Netanyahu, who was at the White House. This war is not good for Donald Trump. He is losing support amongst not just the Republicans, but his MAGA base as well. So how was that interaction? And did he want to publicize a lot of it?
No, he didn't. You're quite right. Benjamin Netanyahu entered through a side door, apparently at Donald Trump's wishes. There were none of the, press were not invited into one of those impromptu press conferences in the Oval Office. It was very orchestrated. There were pictures of them together smiling. This relationship is difficult to decipher from the outside. In a sense, they either both sink together or they both rise together. So it's not that straightforward. Donald Trump is keen to make clear to everybody that he calls the shots. There was a brief disagreement about F-35s being sold, American F-35s being sold to Turkey. Everyone knows the Israelis do not like that. Donald Trump said, no one tells me what to sell. Netanyahu was aware of all of that. He also has elections coming. He has to be seen to have a good relationship with Donald Trump. That is primordial for any Israeli prime minister. And it's likely that he tried to push the idea with Trump that Iran's behavior over Hormuz demonstrates just how hard a part it is that it will not negotiate. He is likely to have tried to persuade Trump, and that the only way to finish this thing off is to do something decisive, to hit their nuclear sites in a decisive way, that their conduct over Hormuz shows a very, very hard bargaining Iran, and that they cannot be trusted in negotiations. That said, Netanyahu has elections. He needs a win for those elections. He also needs to show he has still a good relationship with Trump.
And an ongoing
Trump
conflict helps Netanyahu, doesn't help Donald Trump with the midterms.
Well, Donald Trump has the midterms, but then it's not Donald Trump's job on the line. A lot of people do suggest that Donald Trump really doesn't care that much about the midterms. He'd factored in the fact they're not going to go that well. That said, if the Democrats do well in the midterms, they could impose further constraints on any action Donald Trump might wish to take. We all know oil prices going up. There is also talk, as we heard in the New York Times this weekend, about depleted stockpiles of weapons. Any action that is to be taken, if Donald Trump shares Netanyahu's real concern about nuclear weapons building in Iran,
He
then
said that
before November would be better, but that's not going to work either.
He's obliterated the program, according to him. So,
Of course, that's what we were told.
thank you very much.